breaking / controversial news. Casmo Army has redirected training funding, and we want to talk about it.
Yeah, so I literally found this article 3 minutes before we went live, so I'm not sure exactly what this one says, but the word on the street for the past week is that money had been pulled from both aviation brigades and from Fort Rucker, or I'm sorry, Fort Novoselov, the name changed, for Ukrainian aid. This article is claiming that it's not, and I think the gist of it was that they're just moving money around, which if anyone's ever dealt with the military or any large organization, I mean, yeah, you hear about different colors of money, and I think that's really what this boils down to. I've been hearing people saying that at flight school that they've had classes canceled or training pushed back or things like that, but now I'm not so sure. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with this, but I would say I know guys that are relatively new pilots that are at units, and they're one of 9 new guys, and they're supposed to, let's say you've got a company of, I don't know, 18 pilots. You're supposed to have 3 instructor pilots. You'll have units that have 1 instructor pilot and 9 new guys. Well, how do you progress those guys? How do you get them combat ready? Because they don't show up that way. They just show up certified, and then you're supposed to do the train up. So, personally, I almost feel like I wish they would stop training and allow the units to get caught up with getting instructors progressed and getting guys ready. Because, the Army's pretty big. I don't think people realize how big it is. Like I kind of made the joke that, oh no, we can only fly 900 of our 1,200 Apaches. Like how much do you need? So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they really are stopping training. If they are, whatever, it won't last forever. Now, they are apparently pulling money, I've heard, from the actual units, from brigades, which would be like a wing, I think, for you guys. That's problematic because, of course, that's cutting into flying hours, which are already kind of at an all-time low. Just availability, again, of instructor pilots to get guys progressed, and availability of getting guys progressed to be a pilot in command. So, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to watch, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Casmo, I talked to an Army guy today, and he was talking about experience levels and the fact that he feels like the Army in general is pushing younger and younger and younger guys out the door, and then they're not getting enough experience. Did you see that in your time?
Well, the thing about it is, the Army is going through, and I'm sure it's same to some extent for the fixed wing side. It's a change of focus, right? So when you're fighting the coin fight, you, at least for helicopters, particularly for helicopters, you fly a certain way. Well, now you get into the near peer, peer on peer type stuff where hovering becomes more of a factor. Nobody was hovering in Iraq and Afghanistan. You hover when you land, and that's about it. But now that's a real thing, and we're seeing that in Ukraine, and we're seeing what happens when it goes wrong. So I think what the problem is when you hover, and this, Mover, when you hover, you're using a lot more power in the aircraft. It's a lot. Things are dicier. You don't have as many outs for a bad situation. So you're taking young guys, you're putting them in very heavy aircraft, you're putting them in these situations that they're not used to flying, and that can lead to problems. And so we've seen a lot of crashes here very recently, and I don't know this for fact, but what I've heard is that some of them are pretty much a result of loss of tail rotor effectiveness. And then we can get into the design of the Apache, which essentially I'll pare it down, and talking to people much smarter than me. The current Apache Echo model has a bigger main rotor than the Alpha model. It has bigger transmission, better engines. It's creating more power. It still has the same tail rotor. So the same old tail rotor is not generating enough thrust necessarily. And so guys are putting themselves in situations where they can lose tail rotor effectiveness. And once you do that, it's very challenging to get out of it. It can be done, but if you're a very junior guy and you're not very experienced with it, you could be in a bad situation. So that's what I'm hearing is possibly happening. I don't know this for fact, but that's what I've heard.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know, Casmo. You're right. That's across the board, man. I mean, really, since probably 2009-ish, like the money has just been, and it's real bad now. Like even on the fixed wing flying side. So I'm not surprised that the Army's doing that, is in the same boat. I would be surprised, if this article is actually true, if they actually did take a bunch of money and give it away when, hey, our guys actually need it. But yeah.
Yeah, trying to, and it's the same I think for you guys as well, right? I remember talking to Rain, who was in a squadron F-16s where their big focus was seed, but you still have to train for all the other things that you have to do. And so when you cut, and that's what people maybe don't understand, is it's not just flying hours, it's the quality of the hours. And so if you've got multiple things that you're trying to focus on, you've got to cut all those hours out into various things. And it was kind of easy during the coin fight because you just focused on coin. But now it's like, well, I got to be ready to fight coin, but I also got to be ready to fight Russia or China or North Korea or something else. And so there's all these variety of things. Yeah, it's very challenging.
Well, dude, on top of that, I think Mover could probably attest to this, but like when the F-16 first came out, right, Mover, it was winder and gun, right? So I mean, the mission was much more narrow in scope. And oh, by the way, those guys had 2,000 hours, over 4,000 sorties. So now, which is the way it should be. But now, that same F-16 carries all kinds of crazy stuff, right? So I mean, and then you couple that with reduced money for flying hours, and it's the airplane has 10 times the capability, and you're getting 10% of the opportunity to fly it, and it's not good.
Well, it's going to be the same thing with the EX.
Yeah,
EX will be the same way. It's not your A model F-15 that does one mission, not a pound for air to ground. It's going to be Eagle squadrons suddenly getting the dreaded B word, and they're going to have to train for all these missions. And there's only going to be 79, 100 of them, 80 of them, whatever it is. It's not enough. So they're brand new, but jets break.
Yeah. And there's no way. When I first came to my first fleet squadron, it was way 05. My skipper was a Tomcat guy, and
Tomcats.
In my in brief, he said, when I was a brand new guy in the Tomcat, he said it took about a year and a half, and I mastered the air to air, because that's all we did was BFM and OCA DCA. He's like, that's all we did. He's like, I mastered it. He's like, in this airplane today, and I mean, we had good money for flying. I flew a lot, but he's like, in this airplane, it's going to take you the full 3 years. And once you get to the end, you're going to feel like you kind of have it, and then we're going to kick you out the door. But that's because I flew 1,000 hours in my first tour, but people don't get that now.
Oh, dude, I flew 27 BFM sorties in 1 month. You tell that to a young guy right now,
winning.
Dude, they'd be like, how mathematically they're like they're pulling the boots off, trying to count like how you could even do that. It's just, it's insane that
that's the way it should be.
The flying hours just aren't there. I mean, I was very fortunate. Also, my neck feels it today, but I mean, this is why I can now go to Casmo and be like, why aren't you in position for this 9K?
Yeah, but Casmo, I think it's across the board, man. Even on the heavy side, like they're screaming for money too for flight hours. They don't have enough. Not only do they not have enough money to fly, they don't have enough people to fly.
Well, they don't have enough money for the actual missions. I mean,
right.
We'll talk about the heavy side is not. They're not LARPing. They're out there doing an actual no kidding mission. And the funding, they're like, you guys are active duty. No, you're what now? What?
Wait, your reserve?
Where'd you get this money? Anyway,